What did your practice look like from unaware to aware in differentiation?
For me in particular, what that looked like was, again, as an unaware teacher, I felt I was very rough around the edges. I felt I was very erratic. And I had, going into it, some set standards in mind, such as I want my classroom management, I want my expectations to be set. And even though from observing members of staff prior, I wasn't really focusing on differentiation, because for me, I just didn't notice it. And again, that might be a compliment to the members of staff, because again, it wasn't highlighted that certain learners needed certain strategies, certain learners needed less strategies. I just didn't identify that, and I didn't pick that up in my obs. So when I then took the class over then, again, I did my starter, my bell work task, I did my main task, and I did my plenary. And then that's when I started to realise that there was no differentiation in my lessons. Because, for example, one learner in a mixed ability class who was identified as more able and talented, which I didn't know prior to the time, they finished the task very, very quickly. And they asked me the question, "Sir, what do I do now?" I didn't have anything else set in mind, not even an extension task. And I remember my response just being, "Okay, just wait 5 minutes while we wait for the rest to finish." And I remember them literally doing, "Oh, okay," and just sat back. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum then, I had my less able learners who did have additional learning needs, again, which I was unaware of, I didn't identify through my planning. They found it very, very challenging then to complete the task. So you had on the one end of the spectrum someone who found it very, very easy, found no challenge, no deepening thinking whatsoever. And then on the other end then, someone who's kind of in that panic stage of, I don't know what to do, I haven't got the guidance, I haven't got the scaffolding. And it was a pretty bad knock of confidence then as well, which wasn't helpful. So again, I identified that straight away myself. When my mentor asked for feedback at the end, that was my feedback, that was my honest reflection. And that was also their feedback as well. And we sat down then in terms of, okay, what's the action now? What's the plan moving forward to prevent that experience from happening again? I don't know what that looked like for you, Dan. Was there a similar situation, or was it slightly different?
Yeah, you picked up on the observation stage. I think that was really crucial as well for me, in that I don't think I noticed this differentiation technically happening. I think when you're unaware, you don't really know what it is that you're actually observing, what you're looking out for. And I think that's really the crux of being at the observation stage, is trying to inform yourself as best you can what it is that you're looking for, to understand what the practitioner in front of you is actually doing. When I then did begin to start teaching, although in my plans I was, feeling as though I might have tried to address differentiation, I was definitely over-reliant on teaching to the middle. I was definitely sort of there, focused in that area, hoping that, maybe the ones that were more able wouldn't finish too quick, and that, maybe then there was some that just never really did finish the task on the bottom. So yeah, unaware, I was definitely maybe quite erratic in my approach to differentiation. I wasn't really meeting the needs of all of the learners in the room.
Yeah, and I think that was a perfect explanation of it. I was doing the exact same. I was teaching to the middle and not teaching to the top, and scaffolding for the rest then. So again, I was limiting them high expectations then on my learners. Again, how did that look for them moving from unaware to aware? What was like for me, for example, then it was a case of looking at pupil data. It was then meeting with the ALN code to get access to the ALN directory, because I didn't have access to that as well. And it was, again, getting to know my learners better. What about yourself as well? How did that?
100%. I think that getting to know the learners in front of you is the most important thing. I think data is definitely a case of being fully prepared. The data that you've got in front of you is the best tool you have, really, to help you support your learners. What do they need? What do you need to be able to do for them? And I think moving into the aware stage, it's an understanding of what data you have, but also how to use it. I think you can be given data quite early on, and maybe a bit unafraid sometimes to actually ask the question, what is this data? What does this mean? What is this telling me? I remember being in that situation quite early on, given data and feeling maybe a bit apprehensive about asking the question, because I didn't want to sort of suggest that I wasn't sure what it was that I was looking at. So I think it's definitely important in that unaware stage to actually question things, to understand what is this, how is this going to help me? And as I moved from unaware to aware, I definitely got more confident in asking questions. So what is this data? How does this inform where I go next? What can I do with this data? What is it telling me about the student that is sat in front of me and how to help them? And I think that's definitely something that moved me along, but also inevitably moved along the students that were in front of me as well, because in essence, without high quality differentiation, you are almost depriving half the class of their right to an education.
I remember then having access to that ALN data, again, same thing as you, just looked like a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
I thought, well, you know, for reading age scores for year 7, right, what does 11 mean? What does a 12 mean? What does, you know, below 9.5 mean? Yeah. And again, CATS means, CATS verbal, CATS non-verbal, is just, at first glance, like you said, just having no understanding whatsoever about the numbers and the figures in front of me. And again, like you said, is asking them questions in order to provide that clarity.
And can I ask, because I think you've articulated what it looked like from one threshold to the next really well, what made the difference to you making that progress? You talked about things that you did, you talked about the importance of asking questions, but was there anything that other colleagues did? Were there any other aspects of the standards that helped you get there, such as professional learning, collaboration? What helped you progress?
For me personally, I then went away and I found my research and inquiry time vitally important for this, again, because it was understanding, right, differentiation is a very important aspect of teaching and learning. I personally took a real interest and I wanted to know more about this, you know, and I found out that differentiation, because I believed to begin with that it was just given an extension task to occupy then the more able and talented. But in reality, that's not the case. It's not just creating extension tasks, it's not creating 3 different worksheets for your higher ability, your middle ability and your lower ability. It's an array of different things. There's different strategies involved. You could have differentiation through questioning, the word and the language. It could be differentiation by pace, could be differentiation by outcome. Again, there's lots of different ways of differentiation, and it doesn't have to necessarily be to do with the work as well. It could be in terms of opportunities as well, which I then found through that research and inquiry time. It was a case of then collaborating with other members of staff who teach them learners. It was collaborating with my subject mentor. It was collaborating with the ALN co, with TAs as well. If there's a TA in the classroom, again, they see them much more throughout the week than I do, because they're with them all the time. So it's collaborating with the TA. Okay, how does this learner work best? What do they do in other subjects? How does that look like? How can I implement that into my subject as well then? So for me, it was a lot of seeking advice from other experts, because I felt like such a beginner to begin with at this aware stage.
Yeah, completely agree with what you said then, Kyle. I think for me, quite a simple statement that my mentor told me while I was teaching one of their classes just afterwards, that we were reflecting and discussing, and she said that her advice with that particular class was that she teaches to the top and scaffolds up. And you know, some of those words to me were sort of a little bit alien, wasn't quite sure about them. So it was a case then going back to the research, understanding what some of those things meant. I'd seen differentiation done quite often. You see the task, some of you will be able to do this, most of you will be able to do this, all of you will be able to do this. I'd seen that and I'd experienced that, but then to actually think that there was a high point in the class that you were teaching to, so that every student in the class is able to get to that point, I think that was something that actually changed my perspective quite a lot on differentiation, to be honest. So that conversation with that mentor was actually pivotal, I would say, and it's not really anything massive that she said there. It's a simple statement, but it did change quite a lot for me in terms of how I thought about differentiation.